Hey, church family, it's Clayton again on my lunch break. Hope everyone's having a good week, and it is finally Friday. Praise God. So, we're getting really close to the end of Genesis, and we're actually going to knock out 2 chapters. So, what I want y'all to do is go ahead, crack open that Bible, and read Genesis 46. Go ahead and pause the video. All right, so hopefully you're coming back after reading 46. Let's go ahead and dive right in. So if we remember from last time, Joseph has sent word back to his father and to his family. He has sent all the necessities for them to travel, and he's saying, hey, come on over to Egypt. I will take care of y'all. And remember, this is during a huge famine, a worldwide famine. I want to point that out. It's a worldwide famine that has lasted a total of 7 years, and they're still right smack dab in the middle of the famine. So 1 through 4 of chapter 46. So Israel took his journey with all that he had and came to Beersheba and offered sacrifices to the God of his father Isaac. Then God spoke to Israel in the visions of the night and said, Jacob, Jacob. And he said, Here I am. So he said, I am God, the God of your father. Do not fear to go down to Egypt, for I will make of you a great nation there. I will go down with you to Egypt, and I will also surely bring you up again, and Joseph will put his hand on your eyes. So Israel took his journey with all that he had, and he goes to Beersheba. And so on his way to Egypt, he stops in Beersheba. And there is some significance of this, and we have to kind of go back into our earlier chapters in Genesis. Both Abraham in Genesis 22 and Isaac in Genesis 26 lived for a time at Beersheba. And if y'all remember, it was Abraham who planted a tamarisk tree in Beersheba many years before, and he called on the name of God there. And so Isaac also received a special promise from God on the name of the Lord there, and that was in Genesis chapter 21. So Beersheba has great significance. And so what a better place than to stop in the tracks of his forefathers who passed on before him. And so my guess is maybe he went he went to the tree that was planted there and offered his sacrifices there. I don't know, but it's just kind of neat to think of it that way. And so God spoke to Israel in the visions of the night. So it was more than 40 years before that, when Jacob was about to leave the promised land, that God spoke to him in a dream. And so now he's about to leave the land again, and God is bringing assurance to Jacob through another dream. And you got to think, he's uprooting his entire family, okay? Entire family. Things are different now in our modern society. You know, all of our families, sometimes we disperse. And that wasn't very a common occurrence back in the Old Testament during these days. Families were units, and they stuck together, and they thrived together. So, entire family. And so this is a huge move to a foreign land, a land that Hebrews are considered scum. So, you know, Jacob had every right to be afraid, but here we have God move in and offering a dream to him, and the assurance that, hey, you know, I've brought you here, and we're going to continue moving forward. And my plan, God's plan, is going to continually evolve. All right. So again, he tells him that he's going to make a great nation there. And guys, haven't we heard this all the way back to Abraham? He's going to be made into a great nation, because this is the nation where Jesus is going to be coming from. And in that those verses ends with, and Joseph will put his hand on your eyes, basically giving Jacob the reassurance that he is going to be united with Joseph, and that in the future that Joseph will be there with him at his deathbed. Okay, so 5 through 27, and I'm going to go ahead and just be up front. I'm not about to attempt to read every single name because I know that I will butcher every single one. So I'll get to a certain point, and then I'm going to just trust that y'all read through the names because there is great significance there. A lot of times when I come across names in the Bible, I kind of just skim, but when you really look at them, you get so much a better understanding of the genealogy and the ancestors, who came from who. And but like I said, I am not going to try to read every single name. But 5 through 27. Then Jacob arose from Beersheba, and the sons of Israel carried their father Jacob, their little ones and their wives, in the carts which Pharaoh had sent to carry him. So they took their livestock and their goods, which they had acquired in the land of Canaan, and went to Egypt, Jacob and all his descendants with him, his sons and his sons' sons, his daughters and his sons' daughters, and all of his descendants he brought with him to Egypt. So all the persons of the house of Jacob who went to Egypt were 70. Now, that is 70 men. Remember, in terms of the culture and society, women were not counted. So we have 70 men. We can probably double, maybe triple that number. I don't know for sure. But there's a lot of people, 140 plus, most likely, that were uprooted and trusting Jacob's faith and his foresight to bring them to Egypt, to bring them to this foreign land. So we really need to be admiring Jacob's faith in God and the fact that he is trusting him to move everybody. They're uprooting out of the land, and they're moving to Egypt. Okay, so 28:30. So then he sent Judah before him to Joseph to point out before him the way to Goshen. And they came to the land of Goshen. So Joseph made ready his chariot and went up to Goshen to meet his father Israel. And he presented himself to him and fell on his neck and wept on his neck a good while. And Israel said to Joseph, "Now let me die, since I have seen your face, because you are still alive." So we finally have the reunion of Israel and Joseph, and it's better than anything that Israel could have ever dreamed. And again, we have this very, very dramatic change of attitude from when Jacob was saying, "All things are against me," to now he's saying that he can finally die in peace, knowing that he is back with Joseph. 31 through 34. So then Joseph said to his brothers and to his father's household, "I will go up and tell Pharaoh and say to him, my brothers and those of my father's house who are in the land of Canaan have come to me. And the men are shepherds, for their occupation has been to feed livestock. And they have brought their flocks, their herds, and all that they have. So it shall be, when Pharaoh calls you and says, 'What is your occupation?' that you shall say, 'Your servant's occupation has been with livestock from our youth, even till now, both we and also our fathers, that you may dwell in the land of Goshen, for every shepherd is abomination to the Egyptians.'" Okay, so if you look up a map of Egypt, you're going to find Goshen kind of up north, towards the coast. Goshen was a very flat, rich land, and it had the river flowing right next to it. So, why Goshen? Because you got to think, Jacob and all of the 140 plus people, they're shepherds. So they have all their livestock, and they're bringing their entire livelihood with them. So the land of Goshen is perfect for them to settle. And it also notes that shepherds are an abomination to the Egyptians. So Goshen kind of is able to keep the family not in the central area of Egypt, because that might cause some issues. But Joseph is becoming a representative and an advocate for his family. And that's why Joseph needs to represent them and kind of tell them, hey, this is what you got to do, because I got to keep you safe, and we got to make sure that y'all are taken care of. Now, to further emphasize, why are shepherds considered an abomination to the Egyptians? That is still, there's quite a few different options. So, Egyptians, it's a very centralized culture, and anyone outside is not going to really be looked very well upon. So whenever you have shepherds, they're kind of nomads. They just move around the land. Also, shepherds were kind of considered to be lawless, and even more so, and this is what I kind of think might be the biggest reason, is that shepherds sacrificed animals, and the Egyptians, even particularly like ox and sheep, they considered sacred. They worship them. So you're kind of bringing in the shepherds and their society and their culture, and it doesn't necessarily reflect the Egyptian culture. So this could cause a lot of issues. But that's why Goshen is a perfect place, because it kind of puts them away from the very highly populated areas in Egypt, and kind of on the outside of it. Okay, so that is chapter 46. Now, let's dive into chapter 47. So, you know the drill. Go ahead and pause the video and read chapter 47. Okay, so we're going to knock out our second chapter in this video. And one of the main reasons that I'm doing this is because we literally have maybe 2 more weeks, and we're going to be done in Genesis. And so it's kind of crazy that we've made it, this far. And it, feels like yesterday we just started it, but it's been a blast. So Genesis 47. All right, we'll start with 1 through 4. So then Joseph went and told Pharaoh and said, "My father and my brothers, their flocks and their herds, and all that they possess have come from the land of Canaan, and indeed they're in the land of Goshen." And he took 5 men from among his brothers and presented them to Pharaoh. Then Pharaoh said to his brothers, "What is your occupation?" And they said to Pharaoh, "Your servants are shepherds, both we and also our fathers." And they said to Pharaoh, "We have come to dwell in the land, because your servants have no pasture for their flocks. For the famine is severe in the land of Canaan. Now therefore, please let your servants dwell in the land of Goshen." So even though Joseph has a remarkably high status, Pharaoh is the only one above him, he still has to go to Pharaoh and ask permission for his family to dwell in the land of Goshen. But again, he's advocating for them. He's kind of preparing them for this interview, and he's fulfilling God's promise. 5 through 6. Then Pharaoh spoke to Joseph, saying, "Your father and your brothers have come to you. The land of Egypt is before you. Have your father and brothers dwell in the best of the land. Let them dwell in the land of Goshen. And if you know any competent men among them, then make them chief herdsmen over my livestock." All this blessing being brought to the land of Goshen and being provided a lifestyle and all these blessings, it's because of Joseph. It's because of his position in Egypt. And we've already discussed the domino effect, but again, we're still emphasizing how much that God He's planning each step. And it's mind-blowing to think, because it's just so detailed. And every little thing leads to a greater blessing. And so Joseph is able to take care of his family. He's able to provide for them because of his position, because there's a famine going on. People are running out of money. They're not having enough food to eat. I mean, okay, think of it this way. We have this whole COVID-19 pandemic hitting us, okay? This is nothing compared to a 7-year famine. And as of right now, the worst thing that we've had to really deal with is we couldn't find toilet paper. And that is not even in the slightest a good comparison to what is going on in the world during this time of a famine. So we can escalate this panic and the lack of resources by 1,000. And we are blessed to be able to walk to a grocery store and grab sandwich meat and bread. That's not the world that they live in, okay? And so I just want to emphasize that, with the stuff that we've been dealing with this year is nothing compared to how awful and severe this famine is. And yet, God has placed Joseph in a position to provide for all 140 plus of his family members, the Hebrew people that are God's chosen people that we're going to see Jesus come from. He's taking care of them. 7 through 10. Then Joseph brought his father Jacob and set him before Pharaoh, and Jacob blessed Pharaoh. Pharaoh said to Jacob, "How old are you?" And Jacob said to Pharaoh, "The days of the years of my pilgrimage are 130 years. Few and evil have been the days of the years of my life, and I have not attained to the days of the years of the life of my fathers in the days of their pilgrimage." So Jacob blessed Pharaoh and went out from before Pharaoh. So I think it's cool because Jacob is basically telling Pharaoh that he's on a pilgrimage, and I think Jacob knows that his home is heaven, and it's not on this earth, and so he's just on this pilgrimage, working his way to the day that he finally gets to go to heaven. And I think Jacob, he says, "Few and evil have been the days of the years of my life." And I don't think he's necessarily being cynical right here. I just think that he's recognizing the general character of his life. Jacob, he's kind of he's been more of a, he's lived in the flesh more than he has lived in the spirit, I would say. And so the length of his life, it's almost like he doesn't believe that it even compares to either to his ancestors. And so I think Jacob is kind of coming to this realization that I don't know, maybe he's just realizing that he could have done better and he could have been more faithful. But at the same time, he can have the assurance that he's where he needs to be. He's bringing his family where they need to be protected and be safe. And so it says that Jacob has blessed Pharaoh. And now 11 through 12. And Joseph situated his father and his brothers and gave them a possession in the land of Egypt, in the best of the land, in the land of Ramesses, as Pharaoh had commanded. Then Joseph provided his fathers, his brothers, and all his father's household with bread, according to the number in their families. So Joseph is now this ultimate source of provision and supply for all of his family. That is what he has become because of his position in Egypt. And he's able to provide for them and help them survive. So 13 through 14. Now there was no bread in all the land, for the famine was very severe, so that the land of Egypt and the land of Canaan languished because of the famine. And Joseph gathered up all the money that was found in the land of Egypt and the land of Canaan for the grain which they bought, and Joseph brought the money into Pharaoh's house. So this famine's getting worse, and Joseph is bringing the money into Pharaoh's house. Again, just further verifying the fact that he's an administrator and he's an honest man, taking all that Pharaoh owns to him. So 15 through 26. So when the money failed in the land of Egypt and in the land of Canaan, all the Egyptians came to Joseph and said, "Give us bread, for why should we die in your presence? For the money has failed." Then Joseph said, "Give your livestock, and I will give you bread for your livestock, if the money is gone." So they brought their livestock to Joseph, and Joseph gave them bread in exchange for the horses, the flocks, the cattle, the herds, and for the donkeys. Thus he fed them with bread in exchange for all their livestock that year. When that year had ended, they came to him the next year and said to him, "We will not hide from my lord that our money is gone, but my lord also has our herds of livestock. There is nothing left in my sight of my lord but our bodies and our lands. So why should we die before your eyes, both we and our land? Buy us and our land for bread, and we and our land will be servants of Pharaoh. Give us seed that we may live and not die. The land may not be desolate." Then Joseph brought all the land of Egypt for Pharaoh, bought all the land of Egypt for Pharaoh. For every man of the Egyptians sold his field, because the famine was severe upon them. So the land became Pharaoh's, and as for the people, he moved them into the cities, from one end of the borders of Egypt to the other end. Only the land of the priests he did not buy, for the priests had rations allowed to them by Pharaoh, and they ate their rations, which Pharaoh gave them. Therefore, they did not sell their land. Then Joseph said to the people, "Indeed, I have bought you and your land this day for Pharaoh. Look, here is seed for you, and you shall sow the land. And it shall come to pass in the harvest that you shall give 1/5 to Pharaoh. 4/5 shall be your own, as seed for the field and for your food, for those of your households, and as food for your little ones." So they said, "You have saved our lives. Let us find favor in the sight of my lord, and we will be Pharaoh's servants." And Joseph made it a law over the land of Egypt to this day, that Pharaoh should have 1/5, except for the land of the priests only, which did not become Pharaoh's. Okay, so that was really long, and for the most part, it's pretty self-explanatory. The famine is so severe that money is no longer sufficient enough because they can't make it. And so what they're having to do is they're having to sell their livestock. And then a year later, they have to sell their land to the government. And what this is doing is it's putting Pharaoh and his government in a position of ultimate power. And then there's taxation of 20%. And you can keep 4/5, but we're going to take that. We're going to take that 20%. So we're kind of seeing the strength and power that Pharaoh and the government are building upon. And this is going to greatly influence and lead as we go into Exodus. And so we're able to understand what happened and how it came to be that Pharaoh has become this ultimate power in Egypt. And it's because he's now owning all the land. And we can look and go, "Joseph, why would you do that?" But in the end, Joseph was being fair. It's business. He was still feeding the people, and they just had to use a different way to pay. Okay, so 27. So Israel dwelt in the land of Egypt, in the country of Goshen, and they had possessions there, and grew and multiplied exceedingly. So I was reading a statistic, and it's I think it said in some 400 years, the nation of Israel has became of some 2 million people, I think. So Yes, they grew and they multiplied exceedingly. So 28 through 31. And Jacob lived in the land of Egypt 17 years. So the length of Jacob's life was 147 years. When the time drew near that Israel must die, he called his son Joseph and said to him, "Now I have found favor in your sight. Please put your hand under my thigh and deal kindly and truly with me. Please do not bury me in Egypt, but let me die with my fathers. You shall carry me out of Egypt and bury me in their burial place." And he said, "I will do as you said." Then he said, "Swear to me." And he swore to him. So Israel bowed himself on the head of the bed. So I think we talked about the hand underneath the thigh already. But again, further exemplifying how much of a promise that Israel was making this, and how much it meant to him that, hey, we're in Egypt, but I'm not going to lay to rest here. This is not my home right here. Take me back to the ones before me and bury me with them. Okay, so we just finished 46 and 47. And I know this is a little bit longer of a Bible study, but we're doing that so we can kind of keep on track and make sure we're getting ahead of the game. So I hope you'll have a wonderful weekend. And I always, again, it's an honor to be able to do this Bible study, and I love doing it. And I will be taking a little bit of the break during the summer. We just got a crazy summer ahead. But as soon as September hits, we're going to dive right into Exodus, and we're going to have a blast. So I just wanted to give you all a quick update on that. So I hope everyone has a wonderful day and a wonderful weekend. And again, stay safe, because these are pretty crazy times that we're living in. So at the end of the day, we have seen the domino effect in Genesis, and we know that domino effect is still playing to this day, and that God has laid out each piece for our lives, and that we can rely and have faith in Him, and that no matter what obstacles appear our way, that God's will be done. Thank you.